discussion list.
It's PGP discuss.
I think
No
you were
T.
next and then now.
No T.
Well, basically, you just summed up, I was saying, we're talking about a vetting process. It turns out we already have a list of questionnaires. I just don't want to see us waiting till a nominating convention to hear somebody's story. They got to be vetted well before that.
We agree.
Yeah, okay, so if we're all, so I say let's just move it on to the discussion list, and let's discuss this ad infinitum until we come up with a vetting process that can work. And then I guess that would be at a further convention where all this discussion comes together and we say, here's what's been determined, and,
We'll probably have 2 more conventions before the nominating convention.
okay.
Okay. You had something, Natalie?
Yes, I think that a lot of this will become moot once we have more active process to develop develop candidates and develop people who step forward for office. And also we talked about in the past of having elections subcommittees that would work on that, like identifying races, trying to identify candidates, and so I think that would be a good subcommittee to take that job on. I know that the subcommittees are not active. I take responsibility for not being there.
Mike?
I think we should move on. However, one thing before we move on, and Drew came here specifically because he's interested in co-nomination, and so I think it would be nice if he would introduce himself and let us know what his electoral plans are. Is that, so can we end with that and then go on to general strategy?
I think that's a great idea. Are you up for that?
Sure. I guess the first comment I'll make was the one that I was going to make that pertains to this. I've been talking with Sal Peralta, people within the Libertarian Party and all the other minor parties as well, to kind of remind them of our stature and how beneficial it would be to start early and get some effort going so you're not trying to assemble something at the last minute. And it seems like one of those things where everybody I talk to thinks it's a good idea and nobody seems to want to go first. So it's a common thing you guys are facing, if that means anything. On the aspect of, I'm going to be running for Congress in the 1st Congressional House District. My plan is a little unusual. I'm going to be instituting a type of agency representation. I've been talking with a company called Skytle. They already handle the online voting portal for Alaska. And I'm essentially going to institute a type of more direct democracy where people in my district will be able to vote on what I'm voting on an item-by-item basis. It trends on the populist side, but if you look at the job responsibility of a representative, that's their exact job description, is to find out the base modus of what your constituency is willing to accept and what they're not, and move forward in Congress with that. And I'm doing it under the precept of contracted representation, and I'm using the same precept that the federal government used to go after Edward Snowden which is basically you can make a contract to do whatever you want to. If you don't, they get to come after you. So the contract I made up basically laid out 3 simple rules. I have to get my constituencies informed consent, cannot act in violation of their rights or liberties, and I have to otherwise legislate according to the majority will with their respect to their minority rights. And then below that, I essentially wrote a list of all of the crimes I would be confessing to if I decided to not follow the contract, because some of my friends who are attorneys tried to help me put this together, and I said, man, establishing a civil penalty for that would be really difficult. And I said, what if I say my intent was a crime? That'd do it, is what they said, and then they looked at me like, you're freaking crazy, why would you want to make yourself culpable to a crime? And the reason is because I think that broken campaign promises is a type of verbal voter fraud. So you should, we're never going to get the corrupt politicians in Washington to uncorrupt the government. You have 1 in 1 chance only to bind someone that ends up going there, and that's at the candidate stage. So essentially I wrote up a contract that nobody in their right mind would sign, and I'm going to execute it. And Skytle, the company, does the online voting. They told me for the 2 years of my term, it cost me $333,000 to have online voting available for the people in my district. And wouldn't you know it, my budget's $944,000 per year as a congressman, so that would pretty much cover that. So my people here will not have to choose any longer between virtual representation and literal representation. because this shit ain't working.
Whose hand was up first, Alan or Seth?
Rock, paper, scissors.
So it sounds like a great idea in theory. There's one potential issue in the list of your criteria, basically.
Mm-hmm.
There's the question of what is considered a, like, constitutional minority protection, like, since I know you're libertarian, there's a question of what you would consider something you would override the popular will for. So if
Mainly the stuff in the Constitution, like I don't care if 90% of my people voted to take away their own First Amendment right. I can't do that because the rights also extend, this is where most of my environmental policy comes from, is we have a constitutional duty to our posterity, you know, those two come, and you, just like you can't let this generation surreptitiously destroy the planet for its own benefit and leave the following generation with nothing, much of the same things comes back to your rights. I can't let you vote your rights to freedom of speech away because you're voting your kids' rights away, your grandchildren's rights away. It's a slippery slope on that realm, and from what I've been told, the nature of the contract makes it fairly easy for groups that feel marginalized to, come to their representative with a list of their, petition to their grievances, because I want to know if people, well, what about this, or what about that? The whole idea is communication. One of the biggest problems I've found is I'm in a unique position. I've come from Texas. My family grew up in Connecticut. I spent formative years in Ohio. People speak literally different languages when you're talking to people about the sentimentalities attached to their political beliefs. And you guys would be really surprised to hear that 85% of the most conservative person you know, they share 85% of the sentimentalities with you. They just might have a different way of wording it. And it's, in this day and age, I mean, it's almost irresponsible to run as a libertarian without also running as a green. Because, yeah, it's great if the person running, we don't fit into these boxes anymore, I guess is what I'm saying. I can't define myself as the type of person that I am without attaching, I am equally for, you know, human rights, but that also comes with the humans to come. And it's very irresponsible to paint yourself into a corner in that regard. So I'm doing it from the standpoint of, I can't define myself as a libertarian without including the green, and that box doesn't completely hold me either. I honestly believe that anything that looks to insert itself between you and your government is either a filter or a funnel. In that regard, political parties can be dangerous, and especially when you decide, I'm going to choose this one, it's going to be my favorite no matter what, because this last election cycle shows us what that gets you. Plus, I have lots of experience dealing with the Green Party through my activities through our American Initiative and the level the playing field. Well, I see us as two sides of the exact same coin.
One of the big issues where libertarians and greens often differ is the question of money equals speech. If you're a big proponent of, say, the First Amendment, we might differ on whether or not we consider, or you consider, money equal to speech, whether or not we can have limited campaign contributions and things of that nature.
Oh, no, I believe that speech is equal to speech and money is equal to money. I believe that there is that the Constitution doesn't say anything about a compensatory requirement for the exchange of monies before people are allowed to exchange ideas. I also think that a representative's interests in office should be limited to those people that can cast a vote for or against you. Last time I checked, corporations, churches, associations, nonprofits, not one of those people can net me a vote, so they're of no value to me.
So would you, if everyone wanted to get you to vote in favor of an amendment to the Constitution, a proposal to amend the Constitution, to make sure that money was not equal to speech, and that we could have restrictions on independent expenditures, for example, on campaign contributions, would you be willing to go along with what?
Well, absolutely. Why should somebody who has a fatter wallet than you have more of a right to project the same human voice as you?
Okay, that answers my question. Where's the first congressional district and who currently holds the seat?
Susan Bonamici currently holds that seat. She was, I think she won that seat in 2014. Remember the David Wu incident? It was due to that. I actually met Susan Bonamici, and in many regards, she's a nice lady. She has a very liberal way that she looks at the world, and that's not a problem. But my problem with her is that when the chance came to demonstrate an absence of hypocrisy, she didn't really take that opportunity. What sounded like good ideas under one executive suddenly didn't seem like a good idea anymore. And I think she's more about pushing an agenda than representing her people.
She's my district, Clatsop County, and I think part of Portland, is that correct?
Part of Washington, part of Multnomah, all of Columbia, all of Clatsop, and I think there's one other one that I'm probably forgetting.
So up north.
Yeah.
Northwest.
Yeah, and she doesn't, like you were saying, she doesn't always vote progressively. Sometimes she does, but not all the time.
There's some neo-Libish leanings in there.
Yeah, she was for the Trans-Pacific
TPP.
Party,
Yeah.
Just a little bit of liberal.
Which I would have been against the TPP, because any document that requires 6,000 pages to define fair isn't.
Did you have your hand up, Charles?
I wondered how many people who in here besides you isn't from the first congressional district?
Isn't?
Or
Is.
Is. Depends which side of Portland you're on.
We were recently gerrymandered. I used to be third.
Yeah, we used to be third, but within the last 5 years.
He's in first.
Okay.
So, would you be interested in giving your contact info, sharing contact info for everybody in first?
Absolutely. Anybody
Before
would be
you go.
interested in having it, absolutely.
Okay. So, any
I did
of-
expect an environmental question or two. Yes,
I was gonna ask you about how you stand on the pipeline, the proposed pipeline, the LNG.
I believe that what is to be done locally is to be affected by the people that are affected. If the locals say they want it, they should get it. I don't know why they would, but if they say they don't want it, then you shouldn't be able to lay stuff down through there. No one should ever have no outsider should ever have a higher say over your backyard than you do. So if the local people there think it's a great idea, I mirror their opinion. If they think it's a horrible idea and the federal government shouldn't be colluding with these corporations and destroying the environment in the process, which is how I feel, then their will should be met. It all comes down to legislation of and by the affected. If you have an outsider jamming an opinion down your throat or a service down your throat that you don't want, I believe that is a miscarriage of justice.
Dan and then Melissa.
On the other hand, Senate Bill 990, which was tabled recently, would have allowed municipalities to vote to allow small modular nuclear reactors in their own areas.
Well, not all nuclear reactors are created equal. I've become increasingly conflicted with that the more I find out about non-proliferable nuclear technologies like molten salt reactors and some of the breeder reactors. There's a strong case being made that because they have the ability to use like Superfund sites like the Hanford site, they would actually be able to use that as fuel. I think it's interesting. I definitely.
It's not interesting, it's
No.
poison. And I moved here, physically moved here, moved my life, quit working, everything to stop the pipeline from happening to Oregon. I
Mhm.
became a resident.
Well, I think it brings me to my point of view. What I was about to say is you mentioned that if the local people wanted it, they should get it, but if you're an outsider, what constitutes an outsider? What constitutes in your mind an outsider? Because even something, okay, that might not be where your tap water is directly
Okay.
diverted from, but it
Local
affects
and
all
or
of us.
downstream.
It affects all of us.
Everywhere.
Yeah, local or
How about-
downstream.
How about future generations that
That's-
are affected by the burning of the carbon fuel or by radioactive materials just left with?
I see seriously believe that the pollution index, as it stands and grows in various parts of the country, is a violation of people's rights not to have to filter for free the pollutants out of the air that corporations are making money off of. I believe that one of the blessings of liberty that we have to promote for ourselves and our posterity is a clean earth. You know, liberties like drinkable water, abundant game, healthy flora and fauna, things of that nature. It's a right. It's an adamant right that those to come have.
Alan and then Mike.
I'd like to get back to the agenda, because we can spend a lot of time debating extraneous issues. I mean, not extraneous, but just the stuff we want to talk about today that we can get off track.
Yeah, so,
Can I add one more thing? And there's nothing against you guys personally, but I would have to say that this is exactly the reason that I'm a staunch opposer of co-nominations. I think that if people agree with all of our values, all of them, then they will be green, and we shouldn't be separating and splitting up our own votes.
I do thank everybody for giving me a chance.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you for running too.
I would encourage you to come again and fill out any of our questionnaires that we have, particularly at our nominating convention, because this is just a brief introduction and a more serious and thorough look at your candidacy, I think, is merited by our party. Of course, you're hearing from a person who's a real pragmatist, political pragmatist, and I cannot say that I speak for the whole party, just for me.
How can a pragmatist be a member of the Green Party?
That's a good question, undoubtedly, to be debated at some other time.
and then also, I think if you want to speak to, maybe local Green Party chapters within District 1, so we can also continue to learn more about you.
I think that would be very important because, like I said, I've been working kind of hand in hand with you guys for a number of years, mostly albeit up in the Portland area. But I believe the progressive agenda and the liberty agenda, they really go for the same thing, which is preserving the health and rights of people. This is not about corporations, it's not about anything else than the ability for people to have a safe and prosperous world without feeling like they're going to be stepped on or poisoned in the process. So I look forward to meeting with you guys.
Okay. All right. So we can move on to general strategy. And so I've already had 2 suggestions to discuss regarding general strategy, which is developing candidates and minor party gatherings. So let me write those on the board. Or,
Yeah, you keep running.
okay, okay,
I'll do this right.
thank you.
Let's say that again, 2 points there.
So, developing candidates.
Okay,
And gathering, having a minor party gathering.
Where we debate over nuclear issues.
Sometimes it's debate, sometimes it's information. Folks learn and change their opinions, I've found over time, too, which has a lot to do with pragmatism and the belief in education.
And Dan has his hand up.
We need serious work on branding and messaging, both in terms of outreach and reaching voters during elections so that they hear what we have to say. It's the reason we did so badly, at least the reason Jill Stein did so badly last year. The media blackout, we gotta get past that.
Yeah, Alan and Charles.
2 topics, both very pragmatic. One is that Tricia's been saying lately that she probably won't stay on in her position as of the beginning of next year. And she's our only staff person in the state party, so we would think about replacing her, or what we're gonna do to make sure all those functions she's been performing get performed.
Yeah, like about 3 people.
Yeah.
At least.
And the other one is what to do about the governor's race in 2018, because it's the only statewide race that year. And to maintain our ballot access, it's important to run somebody. But I have no idea about who would do that or what they would be running on exactly. So talking about what to do about the governor's race for people.
And then Charles, you had your hand up.
Actually, I was watching some people, trading, Facebook activities, and it reminded me that, because in terms of branding and messaging, it reminded me that one of my concerns is that so much political activity at this point is dependent on some of the social media, and all of those are giant corporations that have no reason to be our friend. So ideally, we'd be working on a technical alternative to those. It might be something that would have to be like the National Party. But it's something I really want in people's awareness, is that we could lose that whole channel of communication overnight.
No, we would need to be working with Democracy Now! and with
So Ellen has her,
Yeah.
Ellen,
Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen.
Just a quick aside, a lot of people, progressives are, and Green Party, we're moving to the MeWe, which is a secured, well, not really secure, nothing secure, but it's an unfiltered, uncensored social media.
called what?
MeWe.
MeWe.
M-E-W-E, me and we.
Okay, and that's how you search it?
Yeah, it's an app, and we talk a lot through that now. But we still use Facebook. It's our second backup in case Facebook puts it down. But a lot of our live streamings and activist things are constantly being shut down. Our First Amendment right is trampled on a regular basis. So
That's what I was concerned about.
yeah,
I'm glad to
but
hear
I'm not
somebody's
on
working on
me.
it. Okay,
So
that's encouraging.
There's also Signal.
Yeah.
Signal's another website, Seth?
What?
Signal, another website?
Signal is a network
We've
messaging
moved on to
network.
apps now, everything's
We
an
don't
app.
know about apps.
So we've got an hour and a half to discuss these topics. Do we wanna decide on what's most important to discuss, or do we wanna break out little breakout groups and then come back together in the last half hour and say what we decided upon? Dan?
Let's discuss it all as one group.
Okay, so what's our priority? I personally think the treasurer position is the main priority.
Well, it's because it's not just treasurer. That's,
Yeah.
Patricia's been
She's
very
also
quiet.
social media, she's
Webmaster.
Helen.
I nominate Mindy Smith.
You guys don't know me yet, but I'm a force to be reckoned with.
And give us more than that.
If I had enough people tell me that they needed to run a candidate as governor, I would run as governor, just to get it on the ballot,
Oh,
and just to
good.
do it, and without even a thought. So that's what I mean when I say that. After meeting John Baraka and Dr. Jill Stein in Houston at the convention this last year, in a 15-minute conversation, I ran for city council where I was at as a Green, went all the way back to the very democratic little corner of Santa Monica, California, and we ended up getting, over 5,000 votes. And we seriously disrupted, we seriously brought conversations to the table that they would not have had, and they were like, redhead, just go away. And they were all reelected, but the fact is, we made an impression, we made boots on the ground, we knocked on 1 in 3 doors in Santa Monica. I live in Eugene, Oregon. I could knock on every single door, and will knock on every single door if we need to make this happen for the party. And you just do it, you organize and you do it. I worked for Bernie Sanders as well, so I have a lot of those tools that are still just kind of firing off in my head. But it's not a question of how, it's a question of when. And that's all that it really is.
Charles.
Okay, in response, I want to remind you, we have 2 separate issues.
Yes, I understand.
One is running for governor, one is replacing 3 crucial positions in the party.
Which is being held by one person, right?
Well, there's
In
one-
Eugene.
one person.
The
And so-
office is in
And
Eugene.
so, I know the offices.
Yeah.
And so,
So what are the positions?
Okay.
Yeah.
They're treasurer, webmaster, and fundraiser.
I do have, I ran Mindy's website, we raised $2,000 in Santa Monica. I'd
we
be happy to
barely made
work with the
committee, but
current
we did it.
webmaster.
Okay,
Are
so
you interested
I
in being
moved,
state treasurer?
Me?
I would absolutely do
Really?
it in a minute.
Okay.
so,
Or there, could you, if there's 3 positions, can the 2 of them, one fill one position, one fill 2, or vice?
Maybe.
that would probably
And
help.
just an aside, I still live in Los Angeles, and I'm with the Green Party, and I worked on Kenneth Mejia's campaign as the field organizer for my
Mhm.
district, and worked with these 2, and saw what they both do, and can vouch for them, just, if you wanna talk to me.
I ate lunch with them, they were very fun.
Yeah,
Watching
I'm
the
very for it,
organizational
but we spoke
skills
at
and
the
the passion and the intelligence, they were such like a force that helped with our campaign, so just as an aside, I would be happy to like,
Okay.
you know,
Testify.
testify and
All right.
So-
give you other names.
So I'm moving on to procedure. I suggest that we ask Mindy and what's your name?
Will,
Will,
Just never.
Send resume.
I'm not sorry.
sit down with Tricia, you're there in Eugene,
absolutely.
and find out what she's doing and what's involved. And then we'll ask Tricia about you.
So
So,
I'm a full-time writer, and I'm working on a book, so I don't wanna do anything that interferes with that, so I'm not gonna do another job. I would rather do this as something that matters besides my writing.
okay, yeah, so I think you need to coordinate with Tricia, which is easy, because you're
Yeah.
in Eugene.
I'd be happy to do work with you guys.
Master's in coding, you guys, he can do anything.
Oh, he could build an app too.
He can build an app.
I think the 2 of them should sit down with Tricia and as a step 1.
And send a resume just so that you
Yeah.
know where you've done and so on, which I won't doubt, but it's
Yeah.
just.
I have a Facebook page
Sorry, this is one.
with everything on it.
Let's start keeping a stack again.
Okay?
So,
Yeah, that'd be good.
I had Helen,
Okay.
Alan, and Dan.
Just a quick aside, I just recently retired from my position as Greene County Council member. In Los Angeles County, we have 22,000 Greene members, so I can vouch for them as a Greene County Council member. That makes you feel a little better. But I'm retiring now because I'm coming to join you.
We're bringing her to Oregon, guys.
But I'm from
sorry, we're bringing
Seattle,
them.
so I ended up in LA to adopt another child.
The progressives are coming, like
So-
whether
Or are
you
you coming to Oregon?
I'm coming to Oregon because we're priced out of our homes.
Okay.
My house is now.
And where in Oregon are you gonna settle?
We don't know yet.
I'm trying to bring her to Eugene.
Eugene area.
Portland.
She likes
No,
Twin
so-
City.
I can't afford Portland.
Okay.
I gotta find some little community
Salem
out.
is actually a good place.
Yes, in this area somewhere. We're very open.
And then we had Alan and Dan.
Well, we shouldn't be just thinking about, taking somebody and setting them into the exact same things Tricia was doing without thinking strategically about what we want in a staff position and what the most important functions are. Some of the things that Tricia's doing could potentially be done by volunteers. Other things you really want a person who's full-time on this, or part-time, or whatever we can afford. I guess in my mind, fundraising is the biggest one, because we could pay the person to do this stuff. But we should really think strategically about what do we want in a position like this? Do we want more than one position? Could we afford it? What kind of fundraising would we need to do? It's an opportunity to think beyond, just,
Yeah,
she's leaving, stick someone else in the same box.
yeah.
With accounting experience, accounting and fundraising experience. Accounting just as much, what do you do with the money once you fundraise it? Someone
Well, you can also have
savvy.
a treasurer who's a volunteer. When they take
No,
deposits down to the
I
bank,
disagree.
they make reports.
No, you cannot do treasurer as volunteer.
I
It's
disagree.
legal liability.
Yeah, it is.
Has to be a contractual relationship.
Dan and then Del.
Charles, can you explain in a bit more detail what the webmaster's duties are? Because Tricia has been trying to hand off a lot of the stuff with Nation Builder, our Nation Builder account, to us, partly to me and to another guy in our local chapter. And I also have admin control over the Rise Up lists, which aren't really all that active. It's mainly the Nation Builder thing that she's been trying to develop, the PGP Grow list, and checking new signups and dealing with all those people. but she's kind of like been inactive and not really training us to do that. But, is there anything more than that?
Not that I know about. I'm kind of, I'm telling them to talk to Tricia, as you've been doing. And I'd add that splitting those functions among multiple people is a good way to avoid burnout in the future.
Yeah.
I really think that's a great idea. So, nobody's trying to push you out. We really want to spread that out. We've been grateful that Tricia was willing to do it, but it shouldn't be, really probably shouldn't be one person. She's the one that knows. I don't know that much about web management.
Yeah.
You
We don't
know
either,
more than I do.
Well, she hasn't taught us all about how she's been using Nation Builder and what we can do with it. So now we've got.
It's a
at least
big
one more
project.
person
There's
that-
a 4-hour
Yeah,
online
I
class.
was gonna say, that was,
I know
I
part
was
of
just gonna
I
say,
know, but it's,
4 hours, we had a Nation Builder account when I ran.
yeah, but she's got specific things on her agenda to use it for, and specific things that she does with it that she like has put the brakes on me from doing anything with anyone but the people calling, just looking at new signups and stuff. There's, the various paths to put people on and all that, it's like some big plan. She hasn't all been trained on yet.
So Delbert and then Natalie.
Okay, just quick, like, I was the one who handed the treasury over to Tricia, the previous treasurer. Basically, political committee treasury is its own accounting process by itself. I think having experience with a political campaign is much more important than having general accounting experience, because there's a whole different set of demands.
What I would suggest, and we've talked about that amongst us in the steering committee, about setting up a time to get trained for Nation Builder. And Tricia wanted to do it through webcast and web things, through with recordings, so that we would then go to the recordings and learn. I would like to suggest that we set a date, and anybody who's interested in Nation Builder or in knowing how to use Nation Builder, that we meet somewhere. Because I think it's the best way to really get things accomplished. Otherwise, if we don't have the date and we don't do that training, we're just not getting there. And it's such a stumbling block because it really allows us to access the databases, the websites, how to communicate. I mean, it's kind of a big thing.
I don't see anyone else's hand up, and I can attest to that. Tricia tried to split her time amongst all of us that were interested in learning to use Nation Builder, and it didn't work out. So that, at least in my case, I only learned part of it, but not, it would be beneficial if we had like our own little Green Party Nation Builder class.
Oh, yeah.
Alan and then Helen. And
Possibly, we
yeah.
could do this at the next convention, to set up a working group at that convention, people interested in learning Nation Builder, make sure Tricia can make it to the convention to train them. Because I think the general idea for the next convention was to do a lot of different types of trainings.
Huh.
I mean, I can see the Mary, because I know she's gonna say that.
No, well,
We're gonna mention we use it.
yeah, we used it on the California campaign, and none of us also were very well trained, and then we tried, one person knew and tried to teach. And it would have, I was sort of taught myself what I could, and we shared information, but I agree with Natalie. If you guys get together and do like a thorough training, it's gonna make everything easier in the future, because there's a lot of information that we didn't access properly, a lot of tools that we didn't really know how to use, so I second that idea. It'll make all of your lives easier and empower you for the future to do it that way.
Okay, and then Natalie and then Charles.
I would suggest that we set a date for the, I don't think that we should wait for the next convention, because that might be just like
We're just
4
all
or 5 months.
scattered so far away from each other, it's not that easy.
I know, I realize that, but we can just meet at the beach, but she's gonna have the baby, so we need to meet at the beach before she has the baby.
She's volunteering you.
I'm
In
also
a month and a
remember you
half
said
or
this at the
less.
last convention.
I know, but we didn't set a date. But then Tricia Tricia wanted to do it through the web, and that's why, and so that's why it didn't happen.
So let's start a sign-up list for everybody that wants to learn Nation Builder, and then we can contact Tricia and set up a date.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pass the same little thing, you don't need to put your name and address, because it's in the back, you just put Nation Builder, interest in Nation Builder. And put if you have any constraints, like cannot do this, cannot go on that time, cannot, okay?
When you make a list of people to do something, we need a point person to make sure this is followed up on. Because just a list, everybody's waiting for somebody else to take the initiative. So we need somebody to volunteer and say, I will make sure this
I'll be
happens.
the blind person.
Thank you. And then Charles, and I'm sorry, I don't know. Will, okay.
It might be superfluous at this point, but I was going to reemphasize, and I'm not volunteering because
It's nobody's strength.
I'm too old or something. But, as many as possible, we need lots of eyes on this, so.
Yeah, not to scare people or anything, but, there are certain, gotchas and pitfalls with Nation Builder as well that we should be aware of. For instance, during Minnie's campaign, if she was going to appear somewhere, we would add that event to our Nation Builder, and then everybody who liked that, who was going to that event on Facebook or Twitter would automatically be added to our Nation Builder, and they're not necessarily supporters of Minnie.
It was insane.
And so what ends up happening is Nation Builder charges you a monthly fee for how big your database is. And so if your database goes over certain limits,
Yeah.
then not only do you have a lot of people in there that might not even be supporters, but you have people that are now costing you money every month. So
Because they check in.
so yeah, there is
We're
like,
interested.
there are pitfalls to Nation Builder. It's not.
And we called and they won't fix it. So-
Well, no, I mean,
Would either of you
there are
be willing,
pitfalls. I mean,
yeah, would either of you be willing to come to our little Nation Builder class?
sure,
Absolutely.
Okay, so you'll put your name on the list?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
awesome, thank you. Dan?
We're actually pretty well aware of that.
Okay.
Okay.
The account, we're limited to like the lower tier. We have to keep our list down to something like 13,000 people because we don't have the money to do more. And most of the new people that show up in the people column are just Facebook likes. Mostly our Facebook page, people just show up there and there's no history behind them. We have to look them up on the board list. It's a big chore and no one really bothers doing it.
Yeah.
Which goes back to what Charles was saying, it's a chore.
We need more.
I can't make all that much time to do it, it's just too much busy work.
Yeah, and then I'll recap what we've discussed as far as the treasurer position so far.
I just wanna put out that little tasks like adding names to a list or the little small tasks are the best tasks for new people that volunteer into group.
Absolutely.
So
Because
just,
you tell them, this is what you need to do.
yeah,
And they
like
go,
for example.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And that's how they learn about the party and they get involved and we get, so just, it's people who are.
Yeah, so I think having a class devoted specifically to that is an awesome idea, especially since we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items, potential items for the next agenda, so. So just to recap on the treasury position, and I'm so bad with names and I'm so sorry. So
I have a really
Mindy,
weird one too. It's Mendy, M-E-N-D-E.
oh, okay, so you're willing to get together with Tricia? and-
Absolutely.
Awesome, okay.
We need to put a word out that we're looking for a treasurer.
And him too, right?
Will.
Okay.
Him, sorry.
I'm available in the morning until about 1.
What gender pronoun do you prefer?
And so to recruit any more potential treasurers, is anyone willing to send out an email?
What I suggest is, that Tricia gives us a rundown of all the things that she do, and as a steering committee, we set up a conference call and try to sort out and identify 2 or 3 positions, and then define them pretty well, and send them out to recruit.
You'd be surprised what you can get done with an internship as well, which isn't gonna cost anything, and that's what I would suggest while we're at this stage,
Good idea.
definitely.
good idea.
and it's doable.
I'll volunteer to sit down with Tricia, because I talk with her regularly, and we'll
Okay.
talk about this and make a list of things.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to, you're sort of saying this, but I just think it should be important after you do your nation builder get-together to identify someone that's kind of in charge of leading the nation builder team or the committee or whatever you want to call it, so that you have someone in charge of getting volunteers and getting things done that need to be done, even if they don't do all of it themselves. So someone should be identified as leader of that, so it can get done.
Leave it, Mike?
We always make the first thing suggest that we just.
Well, I don't know, all right, I'm gonna go here and have to
Yeah.
So treasurer position is gonna be researched by the SCC and come, job description or committee description, and then fundraising. We didn't get too much into that.
So if we split Trish's position into two, if two people are doing that instead of versus, just one Trisha,
Well, that's what I heard is wanting, to have a treasurer position, a webmaster, and a fundraiser.
Yeah, our current fundraising is that we have a phone banker, and we send out mailings to
What's her name?
members, Carlotta.
Carlotta.
And we have mailings to people who sign up, people we detect as new members through the Secretary of State's office, and people who become sustainers. Renewal notices for dues, things of that nature. So there's a mail component and a phone component currently. There's potential to do more, obviously.
Yeah, because I've never received.
Yeah, you're, if you're already involved in the Corps, you're like blacklisted from all those contacts.
I've never received ever a Green Party thing, and I registered Green 7 years ago.
I think there's something wrong with you. So you say you didn't get this stuff from me forever too, and I was sending it to you every week.
I know, but I think it's good. I'm not watching that. No, but like a mailer thing, so I think that there's a lot that can be done for this fundraiser.
I saw Charles, Alan, and Helen. You didn't have your hand raised, Charles?
I was gonna mention another function, which is keeping track of which is custody of the registration lists from the Secretary of State's office. It's part of the webmaster's job, I think, but it is possibly another distinct function that's very important.
So I think earlier we kind of covered that we're gonna get with Tricia and figure out what all of her roles and responsibilities and even the things she does that are not her responsibility to help us in the recruitment process. So
is this something we should kind of, and then talk about at the next convention, or just as the SCC? Because I'm
She
sure,
does the SCC.
because I know some
both.
stuff could be.
We should talk about it in between and talk about it more at the convention. But I did want to add, just so everyone knows, one of her important functions that's not up there is getting local chapters organized. Because she's the point person of first contact for most people, and she'll be the one that talks them through on the phone. Here's what you need to do to get a chapter organized.
Yeah. That's a huge.
Okay,
Yeah, point person for organizing.
but that's not a function of the treasurer.
No, but it's something she's
No, but
gonna do.
it's not the treasurer that we're replacing, it's replacing Tricia.
It's basically, she's the go-to.
Yeah.
We actually discovered when we were in Houston that exactly what we're experiencing at this meeting here today is how most of the Green parties are across the country, where there's one person or two people or one couple that does everything, knows everything, and that's part of the reason that we're dealing with the burnout that we are dealing with right now. Because we don't establish the guidelines and the training and the skills. And once you have those things in place, you will find more volunteers that are more willing to step into those roles of support when it seems as if there is something that they can support. Because it's like letting them know, look, we've got this position here, this is what it entails, and our society, the way that it is nowadays, is what's my job description? If it's on this piece of paper, I'm good. And that's the way that most people in job markets think now as well.
And to learn how to plug in.
How to plug in, where to plug in, what the skills are that are needed. And like he was saying, oh, she does this, and oh, she does that. Yeah, there's a powerful character like Trisha in all of these parties, and we met almost all of them. We were in Houston. A lot of them were the one that came to represent their states. And man, was it a powerful event. I mean, I thought, wow, Green Party people are incredible. Look at how much power this place has. And then they were like, oh, well, it's not always like that back home. So, over and over and over again. But, yeah, the Green Party's the best party. So,
I agree with that.
it is.
So we should start acting.
I just want to
That's right,
say,
we should. We
on
should.
fundraising, I think we do need to add merchandise, because I
Oh,
think
merch is
that,
huge.
that helps people advertise the Green Party. If we're all wearing green stuff and if we're, using our green cups at work and, stuff like that, I think that can be another, it can do two things at once. It can be doing fundraising and it can be doing advertising.
You both did an awesome job with those shirts. Is that something you're willing to continue pursuing?
I'd be willing to help with it. I don't know exactly how to structure it. I have to have help with that, because of course you have to pay for the merchandise and getting credit and everything, and then there's the amount that you'd be able to earn from that, so I'd have to have some help with that.
Okay.
Three of us from Fort Balance.
Dan, then Helen.
On the Sun-District chapter organizing, I just wanted to mention that we have got Joy
AGP discuss.
Eugene, who has actually been kind of conjuring chapters into existence by creating forums for them and social media sites, and then getting people to join up, stirring them up that way. So there is kind of some movement on that. And also that the shirts are, advertising, messaging, getting past the media barrier. That's one great way to do it.
Helen?
Okay, so for Jill Stein's campaign, in 6 weeks, we raised like $9,000 in just merchandising and t-shirts. We've got it down. Bernie Sanders informants, we sold $25,000 worth of merchandise, because I ran his campaign office. So in Long Beach, which is a 6 million person city south of Los Angeles. So we're really good at that.
Yeah, I designed some shirts for the Jill Stein event to come here, and we sold all of them, and made over $1,000, we did it in a week.
Yeah, it's doable.
Yeah, you're a gem, actually.
But again, this is like, if you form a committee that's in charge of merchandising, and then you guys can come together and use all of your talents and resources and have someone be sort of oversee that and then delegate.
Every single day.
But then it'll be a way to really raise that money, bring it into one place, and then you talk to your treasurer about how to, I think getting it organized to really work together would be awesome. It sounds like you have the talent.
We have the university just sitting there. It calls to me. I know, like every day. I'm
And
thinking, why aren't I over there? I gotta get over there.
And there are websites that we were talking about earlier today where you can put the t-shirts up, people can, from all over, like that's a cool shirt, I'm gonna buy one before I leave, I would buy it. Where people can have access to buying it from all over the country, because it's a cool logo, and then part of that money goes to the Green Party here, part goes to the company that's selling it for you. But
So
she has that.
just in a quick wrap up, we got it down. Got it down. We'll just push it into you guys, and you guys can run with it.
So, I just want to say something real quick before you go, Charles.
No, I'm not going.
Oh,
I'm separate.
okay. Oh, you had your hand up as well?
No,
Oh, okay. So, why don't we start another list with people willing to be on a merchandise committee, and then we'll need a volunteer as a point person to follow up with our merchandise committee. So,
I can help design stuff, but as far as the other part, I don't want to be a part of it.
Oh, come on, merching's easy.
Or just to be a
I
part
can
person,
design,
I'm
I
not sure
can
if you
design.
guys would want to. I don't even know.
Oh, definitely. I'm Serena, yes.
I'll just put that in parentheses.
Would you want to be the point person for that?
As long as I have some help, I mean, the design and the shirts and the printing and all that, I can do that part, but I need to have some help with
absolutely.
I think
setting
she
up
was-
the actual
Okay,
selling.
so
Yeah.
But you're the point person
money
for
and
the
all that.
list, to talk
Definitely.
to everyone, right? Is that what you,
Do it.
so you're just the point person for the list and then?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
this-
so,
He's raising one thing, again, sort of history, but almost the only merchandise we've had is that Mike, who just left, has a number of times had T-shirts made that are Pacific Green Party T-shirts. And so the design, that design exists. There are very few of the shirts. All we have left are extra large. So anybody who can wear an extra large T-shirt can have one. They're in Corvallis, but you know, I can bring them to the next convention or something.
oh, here's the pen.
And you guys aren't far from Corvallis.
Well, then the Coast folks put out some stuff too.
Okay, so there is some stuff existing, and that we can treat as kind of a baseline, a starting point.
Yeah, because that's where money comes from, that helps pay for positions and things, and you can just keep the wheel going so that you're not struggling and constantly feeling like someone's not behind the eight ball. And that's that's why I entered the party, and I didn't expect the volume of work to be as crazy as it was when we ran in our first campaign, but then everything it was taking me, I was thinking more of like pipeline, just like what's going on with the LNG, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't just sit here and not do anything. I need to be there so that I'm there, and then other people will come. And so we moved here, like I said, and now I'm bringing these ones because these were powerful greens, in California, which is the worst thing you can say about them, which is what I always say about my California friends. But it is our responsibility to continue the party. You guys have done an amazing job. I'm jealous as hell. I was an earth firster back in the 80s, just pounding railroad spikes into trees is how I started when I was 14 years old. And I was just a warrior for the environment, and that's what brought me into the party, in the interest of a very different militant side, I admit. But that was then, this is now, which is probably why I never made governor, okay? But the point is, I will try and I will be there, and I will never commit to something that I can't do. So, I'm just really glad that you guys are a small group and easy to talk to.
That's on video, by the way.
That's fine.
Yeah,
right.
Be in here, so.
I have 3 kids already.
I'm
That's
so
really
excited to have you on board.
Yeah, we moved here. We literally, when I tell people, well, I moved here to join the Green Party, they're like, what?
No, that's
Yeah.
great, I'm down with it.
And we tell everyone, but not too many of the Californians. We don't want them all here, just the good ones.
Okay, don't broadcast that.
So I don't do any of that on social media, or, I mean, I'm very careful about
Mike
my
is
word
gonna
on
be
here.
upset with you.
So who, and I'm sorry, I missed it. Who's our point person again?
Melissa.
No, I'm the point person for the nation.
For the
Serena.
merchandising is Serena.
Okay,
Serena.
and then, Serena, do you know who to keep in contact with regarding the merch committee?
I'll give you my
They're
contact
putting
info.
things
I'm
on the list
putting it
now.
on here anyway.
Yeah, and you can pick up each other's contacts from the
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
on the other side.
Old school, like a phone number. The first thing I got rid of was my California phone number before I even moved here.
Very smart.
So,
So then I
Serena,
wanna
do you
deal with
have
that.
an email address for at least one, state coordinating committee member? So, just so that we know,
Absolutely.
okay,
I'll put her on there,
Yes.
I'll put my own thing on there.
okay.
All this is very new, so whatever I need to do, just tell me. See, it's like the volunteers down in Long Beach.
All right,
Have fun.
so,
Yeah, it
This
is
looks
fun.
like
It
it's
is
on
fun.
its way, this side.
so, branding and messaging, to me, I feel like that is kind of part of, what we've already been discussing.
You can get volunteers to do that too.
Yeah.
Interns, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, never underestimate the power of
That
interns.
was Dan's topic, so we should probably wait till he comes back to see if he wants to see more.
Okay, okay.
But I know that the minor part of gathering, that's already starting to happen, so we don't really need to discuss
Okay.
that, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay,
So could we get like an office full of interns plus like
Oh,
one or two
yeah.
other people?
Absolutely,
for
give me
Trisha, like-
give me a week on campus at UO. And we'll have them.
We need an organizational
Now's
chart
the time,
just to
summer's
replace
coming up.
Trish.
I know,
What does
summertime.
party gathering refer to, I'm sorry?
It usually refers to, you get party together without a.
A small, like small party
Well,
gathering,
well,
like little get together.
what-
Yeah.
What it's actually referring
Third
to
parties.
is
Oh,
is trying to
other than
coordinate
Green
the
Party.
other, the third parties.
But
Because there are
they're
a bunch of them.
decentralized, so it's very frustrating, like I said.
The statute
Yeah.
calls them minor parties, but they're
Yeah.
third parties.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can, yeah.
They're actually fourth parties.
Yeah, I've always wondered with third
And fifth
party,
and sixth.
you know, third party, but there's more than three
There are three
parties,
names.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we can kind of do away, we should maybe stop using that terminology.
We
What the libertarians, the fourth party, Green Party third, and your fifth party, like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, let's change the mentality around that.
That's a different.
Yeah, we might need to rebrand
It's
it.
an emerging party gathering.
non-affiliated.
Non-affiliated.
Not affiliated. Better party gathering.
Emerging party gathering.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
So Dan, we determined that, our emerging minor party gathering is already in the works, so we're gonna pass on from that. So the only 3 topics left, is that correct? Is, branding, messaging, and developing candidates. And
We recruited government candidates.
and recruiting.
Well, we had a guy who, we we didn't realize was like pro-timber
Oh, God.
on private property, I guess. And, he had like a big marijuana message, but then all of a sudden he like said, and now, guess what? I'm for cutting timber. And then the media was like all over it. It was really embarrassing.
The one question we didn't ask.
Yeah.
I tried to raise it.
So which topic do we feel is the most important? Would that be developing candidates in the governor's race?
Yeah, I have a question
Yeah.
about branding. How set are we on the specific greens?
Where did it
I mean,
come from?
first, wait, let me finish. How set are we on the Pacific Greens as opposed to the Green Party that is like a national or an international organization is Greens?
It's hard to
Like,
change.
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
So, a very long time ago, there was a Pacific Party. It was the proto-Green Party. It was the Green Party. It was the entity affiliated with the Association of State Green Parties that eventually became the U.S. Green Party.
Back in the 70s, right?
80s. This is during the initial committees of correspondence. It was one of the early Green Parties.
Right.
And there was, so we actually had to go through this process to get the word green added, but everyone knew of the name Pacific Party.
That's a good answer.
And so we already changed the name to Pacific Green Party, just to clarify that we were affiliated with the Greens. And it was around this, and in order to do that in this state, you have to re-register everybody. You have to re-qualify and re-register everybody. So you had to go
Not done lightly.
the 20,000 signatures and then then get everyone to re-register, and the registration is how you maintain qualified. So getting those, and it costs like about $5 to register somebody. And you need like 10,000 registrants, so it's like a $70,000 project to change the name.
It's a lot of bumper stickers.
So we're not changing the name.
No, we're not changing the actual name, but on the surface for branding and messaging, we're still the Green Party.
It's a Green Party.
It's
It's
a
always green, it's always been affiliated.
I thought it was
with
cool because when I registered here, it showed up as Pacific Green. I was like, ooh, I
Yes.
like that.
Yes,
That's
it's,
awesome. So someone said,
Blair
make sure it's
actually
the real
wrote
Green Party.
a real short history. So,
Yeah, if you go on the website, there is a history of the
Yeah.
Green Party, Pacific Green Party, which has a bunch of this really old detail. The Socialist Party also kind of merged at the same time as the rename. One of the socialist parties, because there's like 20 of them, right?
Right.
And there is no interest in going like to Green Party of Oregon?
That was my question, but it's a pain in the ass.
Now, I don't think that would ever happen because it goes so long. The Pacific part goes to the core.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is that the Pacific Green Party is small still. If we were the party or we tried to grow the party, it would make more sense to be like the Green Party of Oregon like the rest of the country.
Well,
Makes it easier
everyone
for
knows
people.
us as the Green Party also.
Yeah,
Well,
but
is it,
but it's easier to find it online.
is it only the Pacific Green Party for Oregon purposes and for the ballot?
Yeah.
Could you brand it more as the Green Party of Oregon, Pacific Greens Party?
Yeah, nothing stops that.
Okay.
And and then my second question, do you guys have a committee that deals with branding and messaging yet, or?
State coordinating
Trisha.
So it sounds like that's a really important
Yeah.
group to develop as well.
Yeah, I think I would merge it with the merchandise because it's part of branding.
Yeah, so I would propose that you do that and really make it a, because there's so much you guys can do, especially from here, there's so much you can do when you get strong in those areas.
We
We should
hand
have-
screen shirts also. We've actually made contact with a group in, a company in Eugene that said they will rescreen for like, $50, they'll rescreen a screen we actually have for whatever we want it to say. Because I was thinking it'd be really cool to have a Eugene green shirt, to get that moving. And so that's why we said we want to find out who's doing what, and and we're fully happy to do anything and take any logo and whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But we just really want to start establishing. Eventually, I will be running for office in Oregon, so I don't know when, but I know it'll be green when I do it. And so we really want to establish that foundation as soon as we possibly can, just to get people knowing who they're supporting. And the fact that there isn't somebody stepping up for governor blows my frickin' mind after the last election we just had in this country. Like, why not?
Yeah, because it's, yeah.
I mean, come on.
We're not structured.
Tired.
I know,
No,
I'm tired.
the parties needs a lot of work.
Yeah, but when we went to Houston, like I said, there were exactly what we experienced here is exactly what everybody's, so you guys are in exactly the same place as where everybody else was, so it was interesting to see that. I mean, and everybody was sort of frustrated, and then Cornell West is hugging everybody and getting everybody fired up. It was amazing. And then Jill was almost an aside. I mean, she didn't even take the sort of portal space that I thought she would. She was much more, look, meet this person from this place and this person from that place. And I was very, very surprised. And there were people who hated her, people who told her they hated her. And this other chick, this black lady who wanted to be the nom, and was just furious. And man, did she make a big mess. We were peace officers. They gave us little peace things to wear on our, we were just the both of
Yeah, we
us.
sat next to her because
We
they weren't
were
sure what
keeping
she
the
was
peace. And they put us on this chick, like, you need to sit by this lady. I'm like, oh, okay. Man, baptism by fire is a powerful thing. It really is.
That was funny.
So I think we
Okay, we're
kind
here.
of moved on to the subject of branding, and from my understanding, kind of what we discussed is like whoever is on the merch committee will also help with branding. And then, well, also whoever takes kind of like that webmaster, or everybody on the Nation Builder class, we also need to think about branding because Trisha's been a big part of that as well, so branding will be split among merch and Nation Builder folks.
Might wanna hold something like a brainstorming session at some point on that.
Yeah,
On the what?
a brainstorm.
Brainstorming, an idea session on, well, we need to do that we're not,
On the top of the branding.
yeah. Well, branding and messaging.
With that, yeah, run stuff to a larger group before running with a message.
Yeah.
So,
Can I add a little bit to that?
yeah,
The reason one of the reasons I brought up the branding was when the SB 990 issue went down, on the PGP discuss list, whoever brought it up was like, yeah, well, you were way ahead of everyone else. Our local chapter made a statement against it and sent it to lobby to the legislature, to their committee, which I'm really big on doing. And they published a list of all the correspondence they got, all the recommendations and people that lobbied them. And we got there on like the 8th of the month. On the 24th, the last day, with all this other stuff, including one letter from the Progressive Party, which, I just sent an email from our email account, but they have this nice logo of a buffalo running, and all this artistic design and all this stuff. We don't have a chapter logo, so I took the regular state of Oregon picture from the logo and wrote our county name on it to use that. I haven't really had the chance to do that, but I think it's party look official, not just to the voters, but to the actual elected officials, people in other parties, to use on correspondence, that sort of thing. So that when we lobby them.
And fun,
Well,
something
yeah.
that's recognizable, that's
When we
fun.
lobby them, they see, well, yeah, and when they see that state of Oregon picture a lot of times, and see the different chapters, and they start thinking, well, hey, these people are serious, we should listen to them.
Yeah, when I made the brochure, to make sure we didn't put, she wanted me to make sure we had the US, the Green Party US logo, and I had it in 2 different spots on the brochure. Speaking of which, how come we don't have the brochures here, do you know?
Because no one thought to bring it.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's what I mean by messaging. We don't have, for the moment, any sort of TV presence. We don't really have an online streaming video audience. That means to get the message out, to actually get votes, we have to have a system of producing literature.
We will
And
have the
just-
video of this convention.
Right, but we gotta produce that literature and have people to go out and give it to people. And tell them about us and what we're doing. And it's gotta be a system, not just like ad hoc where people jump into it the last minute in the election season.
Oh, sorry, she had her hand up and
Just quickly, what he's saying, that would be a great, finding a great young graphic designer intern that wants to come up with a logo for you, I'm sure there are a lot of, that's an easily done thing if you put it on the agenda, you know, there's some great terms.
Melissa,
Yeah, I would love to, we just need a team, I've got a brochure, and we've got a flyer, we've got 2 flyers, like, that part, we just need some people to hand them out, we need some legs,
So you have it all on your committee, you'll get it.
we just need some people.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, the
Well, we need
people's,
brochures.
the people's what we do, so
We
don't even
we
worry
also
about
need
the
money
people.
before we have. the
Creative
pictures.
stuff I can do is,
Who brings, from wherever.
Charles.
I can't do all the creative stuff.
It was on a national level, it was actually I'll say a non-random person complaining that apparently the National Green Party has been fussing with their logo for years. So we have a party logo. I hate to discourage Melissa, because I really want her to run with it, but let's not change the logo. It just sounds like, it doesn't make you look stable. But we should have stationery, he's right. You know, we have a logo that is working, and it's, well, you must have
We
seen
had
it.
the state one, on the new brochure, there was the state one on the front as well as the US on the front.
Yeah.
And then the US one was also in the centerfold.
Great, okay.
US logo. The G
So-
with like the diamond G, diamond green square with the G in the middle.
Okay, good, okay, so, it's just,
Diamond green, you know.
having seen that complaint from somebody who should be on our side, who actually is on our side, I just wanted to issue a caution. And so, sometimes, there are some resources we have. Logo, we have a banner version of the logo. And we really need people like Melissa working up new material.
Should we move on? Yeah, Dan had his hand up.
And also, unless we have like 4 million copies of our literature, we have to develop a sort of a standardization for who we're going to target with the literature, instead of just handing it out anywhere. We want to go to college campuses, hand it out in certain neighborhoods, certain cities, parts of the state. And one other thing was we ought to have a YouTube channel.
So, I think distributing the literature to local chapters and then the local chapters can distribute material to places such as that is a great idea. And Melissa, you've got your hand up.
Because I reached out to, there's a couple conventions that are coming up. There's like the Green Expo is coming up, as well as the Northwest Environmental Expo. And I reached out to them, but this is not something that our Portland chapter would be able to do, because they're like $1,000 or $2,000 to get a booth or whatnot. And I don't know, again, this is stuff I'm not familiar with, but being in with the Portland local chapter, I definitely reached out to them, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite so expensive. But these are places that we need to be. These are places where we need to have our literature and However, I'm new to the party, so I don't know how you get money to offset the cost of money that you spent to be there, but I'm sure there's one.
Mindy,
Well, often there are ordinances that are in place for political organizations that are organized, which the Green Party definitely is, at least on paper and on the ballots, we exist. And when you contact, you say there's an opportunity that's green, and I'm calling from the Oregon Green Party, and we would like a booth. And generally, they have a booth rate for nonprofits. So you just have to know, it's the verbiage, it all is in how you
Because
say
I
it.
told them who I was, but I didn't know the magic words.
Yes, and they have to, I mean, they don't have to let you in, but on every college campus, they have to let you in the state of Oregon, and all 50 states actually, if it's a public. We learned
This
Santa
is like the
Monica
convention
Community
center,
College,
though.
oh my God. They were like, no, we don't have any space for politics or anything, and I was running as a green, and it was in a very blue place, Hillary banners everywhere. And I said, you know what, I don't think that's true. I think I read something somewhere, and they were like, oh shit, you're affiliated with the Green Party? Oh yeah, we have to let them in. And they gave us 10 days to be on campus totally free to do
But
tabling.
this is like the
Yeah,
convention
I've had a
center.
rejection recently.
What's the stack?
Yeah.
and so the stack is Helen and then Alan.
Okay, just quickly, I did get myself into those conventions all over California. I did 15 of them. They charged me $200 so that I had my Green Party booth there.
But she was
Despite
from
that,
that,
it was
she was
generally
coming
like
from the party.
$1,000 to get a booth.
It was, but they only charged me like 100 or something.
They
Some of
have
them-
to.
Some of them waived the charge completely.
Okay, so let me get your contact information,
Yeah.
both of you, and I will, because I would like to construct an email to respond back to them, but
Definitely,
I just need help with the verbiage.
definitely.
Alan.
2 points I wanted to make. One was, it sounds like maybe we should have another committee for outward communications as opposed to internal communications within our Greens. People to talk about, consistency of message across different platforms and who we should be targeting and all that kind of stuff. So if there are volunteers for that or a point person for that who would like to volunteer, that would be terrific.
Okay.
So Dan's gonna be the point person for outward communications, and if we can get a committee together to help him with that, that'd be great.
So are you
So are we
referring
starting
to my
another list?
email, or is that what you're referring to, of like, when I send out an email to like these expos and stuff, I should run it by Dan?
Oh, my second point will address that, which is that we should remember that all these committees should be talking with the coordinating committee, because the coordinating committee's job is to coordinate the committees. So since you're on the coordinating committee, you should be hearing about all this and getting feedback, and we'll talk about it and then get it back to them. So everything should be channeled through the coordinating committee.
Okay, I'm just trying to fully understand, because I reached out to them because they were in the Portland area, and I wasn't familiar with like how, and I haven't never been to one of those kind of shows. But is that something before I email them, or before I email them again, we should discuss it as a committee?
No, I didn't mean that so much, because local chapters can do all the kind of tabling and everything they want, but it'd be good to have some sharing of information across the state and coordinating of messages or learning from each other, and that's where a committee is helpful.
You used to use our Facebook page. I mean,
So
that's
like-
what we use.
But I was kind of halted when I found out it was $1,000.
Yeah, well, that's bullshit. There's no other thing to call it. It's what they think, it's the reason that they don't want someone selling, vaping. They don't want a vaping booth, so it's $1,000, okay? That's what that means. But when you are coming from a political responsible position and you are letting them know politically, awareness, voters, access to voters is the law in all 50 states. So you just fall back on, I am a Green Party affiliate, I'm from here, we have interest in these dates, and who do I need to speak to about reserving those? That's it.
It's developing an information base that you can pass on to other people. And when you have a committee, they talk to each other, here's the question, how do we get the answer? We don't know, who do we ask? And then as that goes on, and new people come on the committee, they learn that stuff as old people leave. But without committees, it's just, you don't know who knows what.
No is my
So you're
favorite word,
saying, can I
just
just,
so you know. I love it.
so you're,
Energizes me.
Let's get back to staff.
no, so you're saying Dan is now in charge of that, so we'll share that info with him
Yeah,
as the committee leader?
yeah, if you're interested in being involved in that, share your information with Dan, he'll be the point person. And as someone on the coordinating committee, I'll be bugging Dan and say what's happening with this, are
So
people
then-
talking, what's going on?
So then you'll have a standard letter that she's written that'll be on record that anyone can access if they want to send it next year
Stuff
to
like
a
that.
similar.
And Dan, you could also email the rest of the PGP discuss list to see if anybody else wants to help you out with that.
Can I get a list of people here?
What is the
Yeah, let's
difference?
start another.
We started this discuss list at the last convention. What is the difference of this, what you're asking him to do, and the discuss list that we
Yeah,
started at the last
I understand.
convention?
As I understood her, she's just recommending he use the discuss list to ask if there's other people beyond the people present.
Yeah.
To become the point person of the discuss list?
No, the
No.
outreach
No.
committee.
Sorry, I'm
Of an
really-
outreach committee and use the discuss list to recruit people.
Yeah, just send out an email. Hey, help me out
We're
with
not the
this.
outreach committee, the outgoing message committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
To-
calling it outreach.
I know you don't wanna call it the PR department, but that's what it is in the.
Yeah.
village.
Yeah, that's basically what it
Outreach,
is,
PR.
let's talk about it. Let's use.
We need a green
Is
term.
that clear?
We need a green term.
Is that clear?
I think.
GPR.
So he's leading the PR committee.
Yes.
Anything PR related where you're sending outgoing messages to people with your
I guess
brand name,
PR
talk
actually
to
kind of
him.
helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just using the discuss list to see if there's people interested.
Okay.
Well, you gotta
Yeah.
get them
Sorry,
interested, Dan,
sometimes
you
it
just
takes
gotta
me
tell
like
them it's
10
their
times, but
opportunity.
we're really
That's your
good.
opportunity.
That's
What's the
right.
piece of paper?
Just to let you know, there was
I
an
just would like
interest
clarification
in
on the
getting a
discuss
media
list. I'm
committee
sorry, I haven't been on the
going.
website for a while,
You know,
but the
we're
discuss
not-
list is not
There's
just
so many
one,
things
there's
we
various
tackle.
discuss lists.
No,
No?
there is
The
a,
media?
Yes, there are.
oh, okay.
Well, there's various discussion lists, but they're not all called the discuss list. There's the coordinating committee list,
Dan, I'm sorry.
there's a grow list,
Right.
there may be other lists I'm not aware of.
Oh, okay.
But
But
I
they're
think-
all on the website.
Yeah.
If you go there, you can talk about all these subjects through the website.
I haven't checked lately, but I think so.
Or you can sign up for these email lists.
Yeah.
And it's not that difficult, you guys. Don't make it out like it's difficult. I can do this 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night. He's out canvassing 12 damn hours a day, and I have nothing but time.
No, for environmental.
So,
Okay.
I already raised
So-
my kids, brother. All done.
let's talk about our governor race, developing candidates, especially for the governor race. So Mindy, you said you would love to.
I would totally run.
Okay.
I would do it tomorrow.
My
There's
cons-
residency
You can't, it's not
requirement.
till next year.
Oh, no, I'm here. I have an
You have to
address.
do it before you come
I'm
up
not
with
sure, I think it's a year.
It isn't a year. I actually already looked that up.
What is it?
It is, I believe you have to have an address, you don't have to be employed, you have to have utilities in the state, and, I mean, it's kind of a.
You just have to be a resident,
You have to be a
period.
resident, period, in Oregon.
You're pre-qualified, okay.
So
Which
are
is
you-
why I don't
so-
understand why people haven't done this already.
So Natalie has her.
Because there's a lot to do and there's few.
A lot of
we
people in this
haven't
room have
really
run.
gotten organized.
Yeah.
So,
So we have a questionnaire for you.
Awesome.
And so I'll let you go, and then I had a question about that as well.
so what I was going to, what I wanted to, what I had proposed to do is at a convention, is to have like a series of workshops on fundraising, campaigning, and there was a third thing, I cannot think about it right now, but there's 3 major avenues to run a campaign that are really important, like how to canvass, how to strategize a campaign, how, there's a whole strategy and the members of the campaign. There's a whole part of fundraising for a campaign, and I can't remember, there was another part.
Staff, a campaign manager.
Well, that's the strategy, strategy, what you need, the timeline, you need you need to canvass so many places, you need, that's the strategy, set up your office, set up your thing and so on. And then, the fundraising it's not just selling t-shirts, fundraising is a whole strategy, you have to have like a 3-legged stool with merchandising, direct contributions, and, and parties, because with
Yeah.
parties you bring interest, you don't make money but you bring interest, so that there's a whole issue related to fundraising. So what I wanted to, and the third major thing was the whole aspect of media. How do you work with the media, with the press and media, and how do you press releases and how that happens? There's a whole bunch of issues related to media. And so what I had proposed to do is to have like a working convention where one day would be more like workshops, or half-day workshops and half-day like brainstorming, like teams getting together around an issue and trying to work, do actual work.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd be willing to travel anywhere and go anywhere. My degree's in media relations, so, I mean, anything that anyone needs to know, or if I knew going in what they needed to know, I could work up something.
Yeah, and there's very good speakers nationwide,
I
there are very good
recorded-
people like Marnie Glickman, Ben
Yeah.
Bob Jensen, there are people who
Yeah.
would be interested in coming and giving, even if it's a 2-hour, 1-hour presentation, and then that committee can then take it and do some strategy and come up with some responsibilities. I think that it would be something that might attract a lot of people to come to a convention if they can, this is a working convention to try to work on the nominations and developing candidates, developing the strategy to run things. But we were going to do it later in the year, but there's this lady who wanted us to have a convention within the next couple of months, and so we rushed to the convention, but.
Yeah, so I'll go and then I'll let you go, Charles. So yeah, I totally agree with a working convention for our next convention. And the other thing we discussed with that working convention is making it perhaps 2 days long. So that way we'll have time to complete all of these workshops. And I think David Cobb was interested in.
I'd love to have David there.
Yeah.
Doing the corporate personhood thing.
And so this would be helpful in developing not just
Is he
state.
really? Yeah, that's fine.
So this would be helpful in not just developing candidates to run for statewide and national positions, but also local candidates. I recently ran myself for a local position, and it was a huge learning curve, but it was really fun, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So, so I saw Charles and then Melissa.
I just had because I hear Natalie sketching out a really major campaign for governor, a really ambitious campaign, and I'm thinking, if we could put a serious scare into the Democrats on the governor's race, we get IRB really fast. They'll put in an IRB just to protect themselves. And they,
Instant runoff.
Instant
The
runoff.
ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice
That was part of my
voting.
campaign in Santa Monica.
Pick up a flyer before you leave.
Stack.
Which,
It's just a malicious thought.
I just have,
Melissa and then you.
My thing about the 2-day convention, because we're gonna be talking about that pretty soon on our agenda, right?
Yeah, in about 15 minutes.
So most of it I'll hold for that, but just a quick brief for the 2-day convention, because most of us don't have a whole lot of money to be spending on hotels and stuff like that, and a lot of people didn't want to camp, but I think that it would be a smart fiscal responsibility for us to have it at a campsite in a, what do they call it? The pavilion. For us to have the convention at the pavilion that has electrical capabilities. That way those that did want to do group camping are able, but there would be enough amenities nearby if somebody wanted a little bit higher class accommodation. But I think that we should definitely keep that in mind if we wanted to do a 2-day convention, is to keep it close to where they have group campsites. And obviously, weather permitting month.
Yeah.
I just was wondering, as part of your convention's goal to recruit new people to the Green Party, is that it may be nice to have a day where you have speakers that will draw people to find out about the Green Party and make that part of your agenda. If it is, then there's ways you can make it appealing to people who are just green curious. Which is, I think, a lot of people in the state, actually.
Yeah. Charles?
I want to respond directly to that, because, I mean, in general, the answer has been no, we don't. We publicize, to some extent, we publicize the conventions, and they're open to the public. But they're working sessions, and sometimes they're pretty messy. They've been messier than this. So I don't think of them as a recruiting tool.
Okay, that's what I was asking,
They're great for people who want to get into the party, who come thinking, okay, I want to be a Green, I want to join up. Because that's really good. But for people who are just thinking about it, I don't think the convention is the best way to make a great impression.
If you're
Well,
doing
like
it
Dr.
at
Sam, what do you think, Sam?
Depends.
This is is your first time ever with a Green Party thing, what do you think about coming to a convention?
No, I think it's really useful, but I mean, obviously, I came because I was curious to learn more about it, and it's been effective for that purpose. I don't know that it would be, I mean, I was kind of interested in
I would put it on stall.
the sausage making aspect, I guess, of it, so it's been really interesting from that side. But if I was just interested in the issues, I don't think it would necessarily.
I just want to finish that thought before, just that the reason I'm asking is if you were wanting to do that, you could even set aside the morning of one day is when you kind of have lectures. You kind of invite specifically new people who just to hear the interesting part of what the Green Party is about, and then they don't need to stay for the whole thing. Or like sort of a orientation day for new people, or like.
Yeah, parts and parts.
It could be like a piece of the convention.
Okay, that makes sense.
Do you know what I mean? That way you're kind of offering something to them, but not making them sit through something boring and not turning them off when they see how disorganized or whatever. Some of us like that, and some of us don't. So just having something special as where you can bring your friend who's interested and then leave, or buy t-shirts and then go buy some cool green logo on it.
I'm telling you guys, it's all about the swag.
Yeah.
So Alan and then Helen.
Three things, if I can remember them. One is, I think we should make sure, it sounds like we're changing to the next topic already. So I wanted to put out there, if anybody wanted to talk more about strategy, give them the opportunity before we actually get people to the convention. But about the convention, there's two ways to do that. One is to make this not a convention, but what they used to call a gathering, where you don't do business. You just have informational things, lectures, trainings, speeches, that kind of stuff. And that you could invite a lot of people and bring them in. And then have the business stuff at the next convention, which would probably be in January when we have to elect new coordinating committee members anyway. The other way to do it is, as she said, you kind of segment the meeting, like I tried to do today. Let's do the bylaws early in the morning and tell people, you don't need to come to afternoon if you want to hear the interesting stuff. Or, you know, if you get a 2-day convention, in the evening, committee's gonna meet to talk about bylaws or whatever, something like that.
Helen?
Okay, similar to what they're both saying, I've done many of these conventions, and basically you can actually do it concurrent. You can have the interesting lectures and so forth going on, and have meetings in a separate location. So you can do both, you can be doing business, plus have things that are interesting for people to be going to, who are new, who don't wanna do business. You can do, you know, we have like two lectures going on at the same time, so people choose which area they're going to, and which activity they're going to do at that time.
Like I recorded the ones that he didn't go to, and he recorded the ones that I didn't go to, so that we could get kind of a big.
I have an
base.
answer to that, and this wouldn't be something that would happen this year, this could be something that's a little bit longer and farther out, would be next summer, or next fall, or whatnot. But I would love to see something that was more outdoorsy, being the Green Party. And there are plenty of places that have multiple pavilions that you could rent out and to have, and you're still within a budget, because these are pavilions, and it's probably still in the cost of what we're paying here. And for those that didn't even want to do that, you're outside. If you just wanted to do a gathering, you got your kayaks or whatever, you're out there on the water, because instead you'd rather have dinner with everybody and mingle and have that aspect. Or you have people that really want to just go for the workshops, or really just want to learn how to put something together or organize something. Maybe they're staying in a hotel, maybe they live nearby, maybe they just drove just for that workshop and that's it, and then they drive home. And there's a lot of options that way. I would love to put together something more fun and campy-like and still go for the lecture stuff. Like that, to me, I offered to help organize it for this one, and it wasn't a taker, but I'm still on board to help. And I know, Jackie, you really jumped on board with me to look at campsites and stuff like that. And
I like that idea.
Yeah. So,
at a campsite.
I would like to propose we wrap up the governor thing real quick. So Mindy, you sound like you're willing to fill out our questionnaire and bring your potential nomination to our next nomination convention. So that's amazing. My one concern with that is if you're doing that and being the treasurer, that might be a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. We kind of need to think about getting Tricia replaced. That's very important.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think, like what you said earlier, just having the whisperings that there is someone that's interested from the Green that wants to run for governor is really enough to get that flame lighted, like, get that lit. And like I said, if no one else will step up, I will totally do it.
So maybe, maybe I can send an email to the discuss list as well, just saying, here's 2 really important things that we're looking to fulfill right now, and somebody's, there is some interest in it, so anybody else who wants to come forward needs to come forward now. So one would be the treasury position, and the other would be running for governor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and it's not only the treasurer, but we're looking for someone to,
Oh, yeah, that
treasurer.
whole-
Yeah,
that whole-
yeah. All of that, which Alan is gonna get with Tricia, so she can give us probably a book on all this
So
stuff.
are we
she
looking
does.
for the 2020 race?
I
Is that what
think
this is about?
No, 2018.
Next year, 2018.
And then,
The governor's race is now off schedule.
are there other positions that you guys have coming up?
Not,
Elections?
not statewide, but all your congressional districts, all your state house districts, half the state senate districts.
Are you pursuing finding candidates for everything, or as
Yeah.
many things
I
as
think
possible?
on a chapter level we are, because, so for instance, my chapter, we've got one state senate position coming up in 2018. I'm personally still looking to find someone to run against her. She's a dino, which is Democrat in name only. Her name's Betsy Johnson, and she voted in favor of small nuclear reactors.
Oh my
So did
God.
our senator.
Yeah.
So do you help each other when you have somebody in your district, does the whole Green Party go and canvass and help and?
It's going to be.
We
So
haven't
what-
been that organized.
Okay, well, so
Yeah.
you will, like, go forward.
I just wanted to clarify something. I thought it was mentioned earlier that our ballot access would depend on the election for governor. I was under the impression that it was a 4-year.
It's good through the election of 2020.
Yeah, so
But
we don't
if we-
have to do it, but it would be good if we
Yeah,
could
it
do it.
would be good insurance to do
And
that. And it's also possible, I'm sorry, it's also possible that it's going to change the law in 2018 about how you qualify for the ballot.
Yeah, and it's not, it will allow us to just focus on that one race too instead of on several.
That would be an advantage.
What's the law possibly going to get changed to?
That's what Seth and I have been invited by the Secretary of State to talk with the other minor party candidates, because when they passed the motor voter law to get people automatically registered to vote, you expanded the population of people who vote, and our ballot depends on the percentage we have, either of registered voters or of registered voters and statewide race. So as the population grows, our percentage is shrinking. And they promised when they passed this that they would find a way to hold the parties harmless, the minor parties and the independent parties. So we're in discussions about what we could do about that. So it's possible that law may change in 2018, possible it may not.
I just think it's ridiculous that we have to canvass for either money or thousands of signatures to get on the ballot.
Well, we don't,
At this point, we don't.
but we need to maintain our registrations as much as we can. I think Seth and maybe you are more expert on this, but as long as we keep our registrations where they are.
It's already below.
It's already below, but, well, there are two levels. There's, if we had a lot more registrations, we wouldn't have to run candidates, run a statewide candidate. But then there's a lower tier where as long as we run a statewide candidate and get at least 1%, which we almost always do, usually about 2%, that maintains our ballot status. So there are two different tiers.
So that's why the governor race is extremely important for us.
But, the other thing, just in terms of branding and messaging, is we gotta be seen doing something.
Yeah.
And the governor's race gets noticed.
I was just really surprised that there weren't more Greens that were just like ready to go, fire the gun, like down south. My God, they're everywhere. I mean, like, I have a high school diploma, I'm gonna be a Green Party candidate. It's like, whoa. I mean, it's really surprising to me. And I mean, I'm
I've been fired up
44.
to get somebody else to do
I'm 44, and these guys don't wanna, like, you don't wanna do it, you don't wanna do it.
I ran for Secretary of State last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's
it's taken
cool.
Well, that's
further,
good because then you can all work.
but I've been
together.
pushing people to think about this since a year ago, I think.
Well, I think people just don't really understand, like, again, I wouldn't be running for governor because I've always wanted to be governor. I'd be running for governor so the fucking Green Party will continue. Sorry, this is the first F-bomb I dropped today. But it's
You're on
so
video.
important, it is so much more, it's so important. People just don't understand the political process. I mean, I studied poli-sci and was just completely, when I was gonna be a botanist, and then just was like, the politics is amazing, this is awesome. And it was Seattle, and we were defending, you know, all kinds of building and everything that happened there, and eventually it did turn into a disgusting mess that sadly, those of us that left, we left because it's just so awful, and we couldn't stop it. What happened to where we grew up along the shores and with the cruise ships and everything. I mean, I remember when the cruise ships were there. And then moving down to Santa Monica, experiencing what they were doing with tourism, this 12% tax in Santa Monica, it's the highest in all of California because the tourists are the ones that are there. And trying to talk to the residents about this, they were like, yeah, we hate the tourists, but they don't show up and vote, they don't go and do anything, and yet it's right on top of them. So that's kind of where we started when we were getting involved with Bernie and burning as strongly as we possibly could. They had what they called burn storms, where you would have pop-ups at restaurants everywhere, almost every night of the week. And people would show up, and that's where you got your volunteer lists. People showed up and gave you an email list, and it's, do you wanna do this, do you wanna do that, or is this what you're gonna do? I mean, whether you're licking stamps, or you're doing this, or you're making shirts, or you're gonna arrange an event in your area, we didn't give them opportunities to say no. It was, okay, great, you're here, thank you so much for coming, we love you. I tell everyone I love them all the time. I love you, I need you to do this, can you do this? I'm doing 12 hours this week, can you do 12 hours this week? And that's how we got the phone bankers going. Will ran 60 canvassers a weekend at Douglas Park Canvas, and people were just, what can I do, where do I go? And we had the answers to the questions that they had right there at the picnic table before they went out. And that's all that it took. And that's all that Bernie did all the way across the country, is it just gave people the opportunity to sign the hell up and do something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's an expense if you're doing it that way. It's not like, oh my God, I've gotta go do this. Like, shoot me before I volunteer again, that mug my mom got me a couple years ago.
Everybody has a small.
Yeah.
It's energy builds on energy too.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like always saying, like, we've got a college there, it's driving me crazy. All these kids, all these impressionable Green Party, why aren't they all registered Green? Seriously. You know, just let me at them.
And it's actually, people are craving it. It's fun for them to meet like-minded people and get involved. Like, it's kind of a social thing, at least. That's the way we approached it, and it is really rewarding for.
Jill was adorable.
Dear
And
friends
Bernie
that
was
I
everybody's
volunteered.
grandpa. I mean, that's how they worked it out. You know, I mean, but that's how they did it. I've never been a delegate for anybody in my life, and I was a delegate for Bernie, and it completely pushed me to the Green Party.
I think the best thing about your campaign in Santa Monica is we had the 4 pillars on there.
We did,
And one of
4
them
pillars
was
on our
like,
business card.
disarm the cops in Santa Monica.
That was a big one. I got to meet with the cops.
Nobody expected Mindy to speak on some of the things you spoke on, and I think it really pushed opened people's minds to push things.
The police think 400,000 a year.
Yeah, we had
In Santa
ranked
Monica,
choice voting.
and I'm
on there.
telling them I want their guns. It was great.
We had the
great.
green hour on there.
We had the green hour.
Yeah.
It was all very educational as well, like people got to know.
People asked
Okay.
questions. I'm sorry, what's the Green Party? Like, people didn't want us to walk away. It was like, here, we had copies of she walked around with copies of the pillars in her car and the values in her car.
Where are we at?
Yeah, I think that's one of the
Okay,
things, like,
so we
groups
kinda,
that-
what we did to wrap up the governor race is I'm gonna send out an email, asking for recruits. And I think we're ready to move on to the next state convention. So what I feel is extremely important that we need to determine before we leave today is when and where. Those are the 2 most important things that we need to establish. And we can continue discussing whether it'll be
a 2-day event and everything that will be on the agenda, but it's not gonna happen unless we have a time and a location. So I've got Alan and Charles.
And we just voted this morning to say that we're gonna also talk about the following convention, when and where. At
Yes.
least tentatively, so we have we're looking down the road.
Okay, so I was going to address primarily when, because I wound, with a lot of product from Alan, I wound up in charge of finding a venue. And it's actually, I think it's a good idea to do it on Sunday once in a while, because there's certain people like Delbert who can't come on Saturday. On the other hand, finding a venue was pretty difficult. Our fallback tends to be churches. Well, they're not available on Sunday.
This is really good.
This is actually pretty nice. So, and not terribly expensive. But that's just a consideration.
Well, we've got 3 potential free venues, and I know of at least one venue that's only $25.
In Astoria?
In Astoria, yeah. So the 3 free venues are in Eugene, and are there 2 in Eugene and 1 in Corvallis, or do I have that backwards?
One in each,
Oh, so we've got 2 free venues, 1 in Corvallis, 1 in Eugene.
which is free.
I think we pay something,
For which place?
but I think it's cheaper.
Westminster?
Westminster.
Oh, yeah, there's a small cost involved, but not much.
Yeah. That's on Saturday. They're not available on Sunday. There is a free one that I'd kind of like to try. It's a new credit union building. Great big space, really nice space, nice new shiny space. But again, not available on Sunday because they're not open.
You've got your hand up.
I have access to the space in Portland. I don't know what the rental cost will be, or I can figure it out, but it's a Northwest Documentary has a warehouse space that has seating and pull up to about 50 people.
Okay, so maybe you can send us an email. And Alan?
Well, to get things started, I would suggest that the next one be either in Portland or Astoria. Because the last 2 conventions, this one and the last were in Central Oregon, and we don't really have many people down south who are active. So somewhere up north, one or the other would probably be good. The one beyond that, I don't know.
So the venue I have access to in Astoria, it's a college. It's $25, and
For a day.
yeah, it's just for an entire day, especially if it's on the weekend, because there won't be any classes held. And so it's available on Saturday or Sunday. I just have to have a staff member to open the doors for us, which I know several staff members there. So
Is that something we could pay $50 and have it for 2 days and have our 2-day convention out there on the coast?
yeah, we could.
What about camping, is nearby?
Fort Stevens.
Yeah, Astoria is a very small place. So yeah, there's Fort Stevens nearby.
I feel like any
There's-
camping for this summer though is gonna be booked, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Within
Well,
the
another
next
thing would
3
be
months.
to rent some houses, and then people could just have.
Like an Airbnb or
Yeah.
something.
I'm thinking more like September.
Yeah, I'm not thinking more like.
Give us time to prepare.
I've got family in Astoria, so I'm covered. But
Just as far as camping, I mean, I know we couldn't even get weekends camping, we were going 6 months out in advance, like, Oregon, camping is what you wait for, so, but September maybe, because school's back in session.
It'll reduce.
Yeah, and it starts to rain more. So for camping, we might want a yurt, or there's also a KOA. There's a lot of camping spots nearby, not just I think KOA is more likely to have like an actual little lodge where multiple people can stay, versus Fort Stevens, I think you have to bring a tent. So those are, I think those are logistics we can figure out. So we've got Portland on the table. and Astoria.
What camping, are there some camping things around the outside edge of Portland, or, I'm trying to think of what there is.
I just don't think there's a
Kind of.
whole lot of that you can get now.
I mean, it would all be, I mean, it's not immediately close to Portland, but there.
Yeah, I was just trying to think, like, Clackamas County has some, but they're kind of far away.
Oh, well, we have our business trailer that we use in camp into. You can, I know it sounds horrible, but we can actually stay like in a Cracker Barrel parking lot, Walmart, and a lot of stores just let you camp overnight in a vehicle on their property. And so we could kind of maybe rent some RVs and just park.
Fort Stevens has stuff available.
You know,
Okay.
Makaiva Park is close to Portland, and it has camping, and it has pavilions where you can cook.
It's got history too, that's where
Yes,
Vortex was.
yes, Vortex.
Well, Fort Stevens and the other story has stuff available in September. I'm not quite sure what Portland we still have available.
For Portland, for me anyway, it's feasible for me to go up to Portland from Eugene and back again and come back the next day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
But
for
in Astoria,
Astoria,
I'm
I
not gonna
can,
go all the way up there and then back.
And I'm
Twice.
thinking like, for
Twice.
example, I can host people, people can camp in my backyard, I can probably put 2 tents in my backyard, and I can have people also in my house. And I'm wondering whether Portland, other people might be able to host 1 or 2 members.
Yeah.
and I think that would be the same in Astoria. I think some of the chapter members would be willing to host people.
That would have community in there.
That's what Bernie did. They called them Bernie B&Bs.
That was a good idea.
Well, it's the reason that the rallies were as high as they were, I'll tell you that, because it was just come and, I mean, I've never seen people fellowship the way that, I mean, it's like my hippie parents did in the 70s, just come home with us, we'll feed you. I mean, we saw it over and over and over and over again.
I
and
think
just
for a
because they
2-day
had
convention, we should.
A cause.
We need a little bit more planning.
Yeah.
How much would you suggest?
Because if we're talking, trying to get people in town to do lectures, do a campsite that's actually feasible for everyone, where you can do group camping, which you would need a campground that has group camping, so that you can have that experience. I think we're looking at next season.
A year from now?
Well, there's no other season, because we're a seasonal state, so I would think that it
It's
would
an
be.
election year.
And it would be an election year, so you'd have, I mean, she keeps talking about all this momentum, we don't have that right now because of the timing, but we can get that
So
in the
maybe,
2018 season.
maybe for the 2-day convention, we could plan that out tentatively for next season, but for our next,
I think we should just focus
business.
on putting a convention, just a 1-day convention, in one location, and make it simple, because
Maybe just
Yeah.
1 or 2. What about, so we're settling on Astoria or Portland?
Portland, for our,
I think we should just do 1 day, that's what I think, for the scope. And you save the, because you're talking about doing workshops that talk about
Yeah.
nominations and
So-
stuff, which would be perfect for an election.
So I'm thinking maybe contacting like Marnie Glickman, who's done a lot of fundraising, and see if she would be willing to come. Or maybe even just do like a web conference, so she wouldn't need to travel. And Bob Jensen, who's done a lot of media, so I was thinking about them too. And I know another person who's done a lot of campaign, like strategy campaign, like how you plan a campaign, because it's a matter of numbers.
Yeah, I still think we should do
And
that
so-
next season.
So,
oh, after you, Val.
So let me ask them what their availability would be, how could we do that, and then I'll just report back. I cannot do it this week, I can do it next week, not this coming week, the next week. I can go on the phone, and ask a little bit that, and then report to the steering committee about what would those logistics be.
I think Hillary Kane has the list for, oh, I'm sorry, for the national convention, who they had. And a lot of them were from the West Coast.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw something out again. How about if we do the next convention, a 1-day thing in Astoria, then people don't have to worry about staying overnight, you just go up and come home. And then in Portland in January, when we generally have a convention, we could try to do a 2-day thing And Portland is easier for people to go in and out if they don't wanna stay overnight. And a lot of people live in Portland area anyway.
Okay.
So that would be more feasible. And in January, if we're doing a lot of these trainings, that would be good, because the next spring is when we wanna do the nominating convention. So you get people thinking about running for office and what it takes, and then hopefully by the springtime, you have some people ready to run.
And then that can be the 2-day outdoor camping one?
In January?
Not in January.
No, no.
If it was Portland, you wouldn't have to keep.
If we do it in
Yeah,
Portland, we
spring
can do
one.
hosting.
Not
I
unless you're a
just
beaver.
really wanted to put an event together, like,
Well, what
You
about the
can come
springtime
camp with
nominating
me in
convention for
Astoria.
a, camp
You can stay at my house.
I want like the Willamette Mission group campsite, I just want a
Yeah.
big green.
You know,
room.
that sounds like a green festival, like that sounds like a
Yes,
green
green
gathering.
festival.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And what we could do is we could be working on like some of the branding, merchandising, and some other things that we've been talking about.
And you
And
can,
even, we could even just try to work on that nation builder.
It's a pain in the ass, but you can get it down. I hate it, but he's
The
much
nation
better at
builder?
that stuff than I am.
Okay, so Astoria, I second Astoria in the next convention.
All right, so,
A small convention, a small consideration in favor of Astoria, there's a party tradition of paying tribute to new chapters by holding a convention.
oh, okay.
that's
So
cool.
Astoria's fairly new.
Yeah,
We've been operating less than a year, so.
yeah, so, when we have people pop up, we wanna go to them.
Yeah? Okay, all in favor of the next one-day convention in Astoria?
When would that be held?
That's
Well, it's next.
September, mid-September?
September-ish.
The weather should still be pretty good in Astoria.
Maybe like the 15th?
The 15th is a Friday.
Or that weekend, no, that
How about the
Saturday.
17th?
Sunday?
The Sunday?
Or
no,
Saturday?
that's a Monday, the 16th.
The 17th is a Sunday.
17th is a Sunday.
What's
I'm looking at
Constitution Day? That's-
2018.
There you go.
You're in.
I'm way
You're
far
already
behind.
projecting into the future.
I'm looking for the long haul.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're talking about September 17th, Sunday for a one-day thing in Astoria?
If the venue's taken care of, I support Sunday.
Yeah, I just, need to officially book it.
Well, we could
Okay.
say that weekend
That
with
weekend.
the date to be determined as soon as we locate a venue.
Subject to availability.
Okay.
Okay,
Jackie's job
Jackie,
here.
you're on it.
all in favor?
And, great, that sounds like a fabulous thing. And what do we want to focus at that convention?
So I've written ideas, or I've written down everything that everyone said we should talk about at the next convention. So we didn't quite finish our amendments to the bylaws. I think we got over halfway through it, though. Continuing planning for our 2-day convention. The nomination process, how, kind of like solidifying how we want to nominate our candidates. Quorums, someone mentioned quorums for conventions,
That would be amendments.
yeah. Supporting member requirements, I think a few people wanted to continue to kind of hash that out and whether that's.
Yeah, that also has to be an amendment.
And continue to talk about Tricia's replacement.
So essentially the same agenda as today.
Essentially, yeah.
Well, hopefully we can
Well-
find some
And
people
also,
for
I
that.
think-
Further down.
I think
the road.
Dan has hand up and Charles as well.
Yeah, we need to prepare for I mentioned this before, we need to prepare for the eventuality that with co-nominations, we're gonna get all these corporately funded candidates. We have to ensure that we have a system in place to ensure
Yeah.
that they represent green values.
So I think kind of what we were gonna do was continue to discuss that by email so that we can have a more solidified
Start working on a formal proposal to
Well,
be
I
voted on
oppose
at the convention.
co-nominations, everyone knows that.
So under amendments, because a lot of these things have to be an amendment to the bylaws, I have 4 things. Finishing up the stuff I had today that we didn't get to. Maybe doing a co-nomination policy in the bylaws. It's the only way we can enforce it, because otherwise, whatever.
And
the
then that
convention
could be that we
decides.
don't come out to nominate.
Supporting member requirements and a quorum for the conventions. So those are 4 things, and those would all be amendments.
Alan, actually, I'm not, there is a supporting member requirement in there. It's just we stopped enforcing it. And the actual reason was, it was a pain in the rear. So we may not need an amendment, we may just need to set up a reasonably efficient way to do it.
Yeah. Well, it was continuing the conversation.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to get rid of the supporting requirement entirely, we'd have to change the bylaws.
Right, okay. I think, yeah, so actually, I think what Seth was, at least was pointing to is maybe we should just start doing it properly.
Yeah.
And
But that's infrastructure.
As Dan has mentioned with this whole corporate money, one of our biggest things as the Green Party is we pride ourselves on being the only party that does not take corporate money. So if we co-nominate with anyone, we can no longer say that.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you should just make
So are you
it
willing
green.
to give that up in order
Well,
to
you can't,
nominate?
yeah.
That's a big thing. For
We
us.
were
We're
talking
the
about
only
that.
party.
Well, everybody was out to lunch, and that would be the one thing I think we could all agree on as a requirement for co-nomination would be taking no corporate money.
Which means you're
Which
gonna
is
get, your
really
list
hard.
is gonna go.
Which
It's
is
not
should
sure
other
way.
candidates and stuff.
I mean, I got that so much in money, Santa Monica.
Like, oh, how much money? I can throw a check at it, but.
I'm
Yeah,
like, no, I don't
Green
want your
Party-
money, buddy, I want
Green
your
Party
vote.
could do so much better financially if we didn't
I
have
know.
green
Oh
companies.
my
There are
God, we
green
asked.
companies, but we choose not to.
We
So-
chose not to. But we had to convince them, well, no, we don't want your money, what we want is your politics. We want you to understand why we're here, why we're doing this in the first place, and what it benefits to you to have candidates that are looking for the
Yeah, put
future.
our logo on your.
Hello, right, yeah.
And so, and that's not a requirement for endorsing candidates though, is it? Like we can endorse.
I don't think so.
Endorsement is different.
Non-nomination.
So I suggest that we do a proposal on whether we co-nominate, yes or no, and what are the requirements for co-nomination. Float them around and vote them at the next convention, because we're not gonna resolve it.
Yeah, it'll be on the
And-
agenda.
And definitely have corporate money is part of that discussion.
And then, but how do we have a little investing in this and make sure that they're not, like, how do we know
Well,
that?
they would be
They
registered.
have to
Report.
register it, it's all public record, every
Yeah.
dollar that I made was public record, and it's all accessible, and even before you file for committee, wherever you're running, it's all right there, where you get your money, there's quarterly reports.
Yeah,
The
but
problem is
or,
that-
I know there's so much
After
corruption in
the
politics,
nomination.
can't your person, your business owner, can they decide, okay, I'm gonna take this $10,000 from my business, but I'm gonna donate it as a.
Well, it's,
Alan and I both have our hands up.
You wouldn't have
So, so in Oregon, there's a website called Orastar.
Yeah,
So if you're accepting any donation over $100, you have to file it with Orastar.
And which is,
And it's
includes
public.
who your employer is and all of that stuff. correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and then Alan is like.
Well, the problem is you can't unnominate somebody once they're already on the ballot. So if somebody says, I'm not gonna take corporate money, and we nominate them, and then they go ahead and they take corporate money, we have no mechanism to enforce that other than to publicize the fact that they agreed not to and have broken their promise.
Which is
So
why
my
you should
question for
nominate
you
Greens.
is how,
Yeah.
how does it benefit you to nominate others? Why would you even want to nominate others? How does that benefit the Green Party?
doesn't.
That's a good
It
question.
doesn't.
I can
Okay,
answer
what's the
that.
point?
There's parties that have similar values, and if we're not running a candidate and they're running a candidate that we think is a good one, it helps to have our name out there with that candidate. We've done it with several people, from the Progressive Party in particular, and they do the same thing for us sometimes.
Wouldn't just endorsing them get your name out there? Like why?
Doesn't get it on the ballot.
So your name would be on the ballot next to it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would say, Alan Zundell, candidate of the Green Party, the Progressive Party, the Independent Party, the work,
Okay.
they only do
It
three.
just gets your name on the ballot for recognition, is the only
Yes.
your motivation.
And then
So is it,
people-
what is the trade-off?
Then when the voters see it, they say, oh, Green Party.
And helps candidates that we approve of.
Yeah, but then you just have to make sure that the right ones that you're discussing. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
And it's really the same issue as nominating our own candidates.
Yeah, be careful who you pick.
You had your hand up,
Oh,
Helen?
no,
Okay.
thank you.
Natalie?
We had also talked about maybe getting together a small group and video conferencing or other reform to go over Nation Builder. Should we set a date for that?
Well, I need to talk to Tricia, and then I will contact all of you.
Yeah, we need to know Trish's availability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's also a lot of videos, training videos through Nation Builder. And so we can just even start with those.
Well, yeah, but we don't need a date for us to all travel to the central locations to watch the video.
Yeah, they're on YouTube.
I know, but you know, the thing is that unless,
I haven't done it yet.
yeah, the thing is that for me, personally, setting a date with 2 or 3 people and we eat popcorn and watch the videos helps me like put my feet to the fire and do it.
People learn in
Some
different
people are
ways.
Yeah.
Well, you could have a meeting when you guys get together, and part of the meeting is watch the video first, and then we'll get together on this day and talk via conference call or something. I mean, that way you don't have to drive.
Melissa agreed to be the point person, so she's gonna make sure this is carried forward.
Yeah, but I'm focusing on trying to get all of us together with Tricia. Right?
Well, Natalie, since that's your way of learning, maybe you and I can get together and watch the videos together, because I still need to do that too. And if anybody else who hasn't watched them wants to join us, either in Portland or Astoria.
Yeah, I can take my dog and we can go to the beach and watch that.
They're boring, really boring. They have the driest of dry. I mean, this guy gave me some ginger ale, something, it's awful. But
There's people that also will do tutorials with you. And
we
I
did a
actually,
tutorial at Green Party at the convention when it was all workshops. They did the bylaws and everything, the nomination, and then they had workshops that were just full. People were pushing their way in to get in there. And we were told all 50 states were represented, but I haven't met anybody here that's been there, that went.
Well, I was there.
Oh, you were there?
Seth
Okay,
was there.
right on.
And Seth was there. And
I don't know how you missed Seth.
I didn't meet him.
Alan?
So the essential thing to do today for the convention was pick a place and time. But again, I'm gonna remind you, we agreed this morning to also think another convention out
In January.
in January for a place and time. You know, one of the most important pieces of business for that convention would be electing coordinating committee members, because some terms are expiring
Okay.
When do they expire?
January.
So I thought we already floated Portland in January?
Did we?
Yeah,
Portland and then
so are we wanting that to be the 2-day convention? 'Cause I'm really liking this 2-day camp.
I think
Well,
it's
it
2-day,
doesn't
but not.
preclude us from doing one later on.
Willamette Mission.
Where's
But
that?
we can do that
It's-
in the spring,
It's
so you-
halfway between, I know, I'm telling you. It's halfway between here and Portland.
So why don't we target that for the springtime?
That's what I think.
And
then
that
it's
in
just fun.
January,
Summer.
we
Just
could
a
do
one
Portland,
day.
one day.
Yeah.
in
And then
January,
plus,
just so
and
we do
you
the one
guys
day
Yeah,
to do
and then-
trainings.
Yeah, but I think that we should keep on the agenda to continue planning for this 2-day festival convention.
Yeah.
You know,
But if you did 2-day in Portland, I thought you guys talked about this earlier, in January, then you can host people in each other's houses. So you could do 2 2-day conventions if you wanted.
Helen?
This is my two cents, which I don't have any right to say 2 cents, but I would do 2 days in Portland, because you guys have so much stuff to work on.
yeah, I agree.
The amount of work is, I'm like staggered.
Yeah, and then it's a,
One day
it's a
is
way
not
to
gonna
bring
be enough.
people to, you know, to kind of also, you can have a
So
little
you could,
party,
yeah,
we
you
can,
could
you know, just.
speakers, eating, gathering.
We can still do a 2-day thing in spring.
That's what she just
I'm
said.
for festival.
Festival sounds like
Yeah.
Because then you have a winter one and then a green gathering as a festival, and
I wanna plan
Was
with
So you
anybody
say
wanna?
2 days in January and 2 days in the spring? Is that the idea?
I would suggest that too, but we're not,
Yeah,
I would
because
say a
it-
2-day,
Putting it on like 2
in
cents.
January and a 2-day in June.
Yes.
We'll have to have a nominating committee
In May?
Cause the June one, we need to book the dates
It might have to
in
be
3 months.
at the nominating.
You can nominate.
It needs to be a nominating convention. When do we
I
nominate?
think in June, June is okay.
Yeah, beginning of June.
Yeah, and we've got 2 campaigns, we just did one, beautiful weather, we're doing another one next week.
Okay.
June is a mean.
Early June would be good.
Yeah, and I think by the next convention, that date should be set so that we can
Promote it.
book it, because you
Well,
book
we
it
can do
9
that
months in
now.
advance. Or you can, 9 months in advance as well.
I would just observe that the camping trip probably would be as a gathering thing, as a recruiting opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
the one in January would be more focused on training, and the one in the spring would be more focused on recruitment and messaging and things like that.
Correct.
You can do a lot of planning in January.
Okay, in June, we actually need a nominating convention and a recruiting and a party.
So with 2 days you can fit in both
So
of
2
them.
days you can fit in both.
That's
You know,
what,
but it's not, this is a great, this is like a 1-year planning, this is what we need.
I just would, in addition to that, when you do this festival, if it's a convention or a festival, whatever you decide, you can also, as part of the recruiting, making it more accessible, you can invite different people that are related to green issues, like a permaculture table, and which is also really helpful in drawing people in. It might be something to consider. And different
Dave
things like
Matthews
that.
Day.
There you
my
go.
partners with permaculture students.
Yeah, so how great to have little tables that are non-political, but you're drawing people in for issues that matter to the Green Party, and then they can bring their families, if you can't, and someone can go to hear a lecture, a speaker, or be involved, and then I want to volunteer, here's how you go get involved. At the last convention, you already identified and trained people in how to recruit volunteers, so you have that set up and ready to go,
Yeah.
so it'll be a great
We saw it as an opportunity, like I said, gotta use the word opportunity. Your name came up, your company's amazing, can you be here? Oh, all of a sudden it's available, they can do it, they'll work it out.
Excuse me, and you have your hand up.
Yeah, cause like I table all the vegan festivals and events all over down where I'm at. And you can do that up here just to promote the green festival for June. I think you'll get a really.
We can
pretty
pick
good
And then you have
emphasis,
vegan
too.
tables come to the
Yeah.
festival, and
There's lots of vegan
And then the
things.
paleo next.
We
always
can
register
get it to pay
voters.
for itself, because we can get people to.
you could probably even have musicians come and perform, or, you know, you can make it,
Let's pay for itself and plus that.
yeah. It could be, yeah.
So could we have point people to start looking at venues and securing things so we can be prepared ahead of time?
I want to be the point person for the June.
Okay, June.
I'm the point person for the January.
There you go, we knew that was coming.
Anybody wants to help me for the training convention in January?
Sam,
Are
you
you-
had said you might have access to
I'm
it
point
in here.
person,
You're volunteering?
but I would like some help.
Oh,
No doubt.
Well, I'm in Portland, I can help, but I can't do a whole lot.
Natalie,
I'm nearby, I'm in Oregon City.
Perfect, you want to help, that would be great.
We have some good
and
greens in
Natalie,
Portland.
Sam said he might have a venue in mind, so.
Wonderful, great.
Yeah. Well, we'll get your.
All can
contact
exchange and,
One more group that, you know, I've been hearing about vegans and other ones, I think, you know, that Standing Rock has really raised the idea of Indians and their, well, you know, looking out
Yeah.
7 generations kind of thing, and it might be a way to bring some of them
like the
to
Chinook
Native
tribe.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Helen.
Okay, well, a really important thing that we do, wherever we're having a meeting or an event, we invite the indigenous tribe whose lands that belongs to them. We always invite them, and they are the ones that always open our meeting or, because we are a guest on their land, so, yeah, I got,
That's an awesome idea.
Again, they just show up because they know who they are, they already know who they are.
but here you might wanna invite them.
Yeah.
Like the solidarity thing.
I work
Yeah.
out with the Latino people, so.
Yes.
my people.
Okay, so we have September 16th weekend in Astoria, June, sometime, we'll figure that out, as we go. And then January, do we know of like a time that works for people in January? Or should we just kind of have her contact some places and?
Do you want to start looking at potential dates in January?
Yeah.
There's the weekend of the 7th. Martin Luther King, on Monday, some places are closed for, so it could be a good weekend.
It could be a good weekend because it's also just right after the holidays, so people are getting back in track with things.
So the 13th, 14th maybe.
Weekend of the 13th, 14th in January.
That sounds pretty good.
There's often a lot of events for Martin Luther King Day around the same time, so you might want to consider that.
You want to move it to 2021?
Well, I was thinking not having that Monday could be a good thing for people if they're having a 2-day convention and they've got to come.
The events are.
I didn't have a suggestion, I was just making sure we're thoughtful about that.
It might work for you, though.
Check for fun.
We just have to get the date on the Facebook agenda as soon as
First.
possible, and I would volunteer for any and all of that. I'm, complete
Let me
social.
contact the NAACP, see if they would like to do something
Totally, absolutely.
together. And then, because they might be interested in doing some training and doing joint training. And so we can do it work together instead of recreating the wheel.
And then also speakers related to that, like it'd be wonderful if you could get Cornell West or somebody of that caliber.
Yeah,
who
and
knows.
let me contact the NAACP.
So we're talking about the 13th, 14th of January?
Yes,
2-day convention.
yes.
And John Barack is one of my Facebook friends. I friended him when I met him. He actually friended me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. I cried in his lap. That's probably why.
Let me contact the NAACP, talk to them and get them to see whether this is be agreeable for them before we commit to that date.
Okay.
This is a tentative date.
Yeah, and because we definitely want to work together. We don't want to take over.
And then June, the Willamette Mission is actually closer to here than this one.
Yes.
It's more central.
I just wanted to let, tomorrow, the NAACP chapters from all around the state are convening in Portland to lobby at the legislature.
In Portland?
I mean, here, in Salem,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. It's our lobbying day, NAACP. And matter of fact, our chapter president from Corvallis is having a press conference at the beginning of the thing, and he'll be,
So you know the NAACP?
I'm in the NAACP in Corvallis.
Would you mind just talking to them and floating the idea that we want you to do a training to run candidates, that we were thinking of this weekend. We totally realize it's Martin Luther King,
Yeah.
but would they be interested in working together to do like a campaign training conference?
I will.
Perfect, thank you so much. And
And
I
it's
have your
the-
contact information, so I'll call you tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
Tim.
Tim, up at the top.
I'll let you borrow my pen, that's why I can see.
So we've done the essential things, and I just want to float it out there. We could decide to adjourn earlier than 4:30 if we chose to.
Yeah, there's a hockey game that I gotta watch.
I want to
Looks like we're pretty well.
Starts in 57 minutes.
Anybody else wants to add something or mention something?
I bought some shirts, I think.
I'll have to see if I have enough cash.
Yeah.
How much are the shirts?
Well,
$15.
I was thinking, I have to pay $10 for the shirts and the printing and all that, but I was thinking 15, because at least 5 would be going to that bucket over
And
there.
it's all going to the Green Party?
Yes.
Oh.
By the way, I know the bucket's next to me, but it's not my bucket.
That bucket.
We bought the coffee, that was our good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
What size?
I think Alan brought the bucket, so we can look at it.
You can
Yes,
come
I'm
and
taking the
look.
bucket with the money.
I've got both women's and men's.
What, do you have all sizes?
Yeah.
You have baby size? dog
So,
size?
does anyone motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded?
I've already agreed.
All in favor?
Job, guys.
Thank you, everybody. I
Would
feel
anybody
like
like to count the money with me before I leave with it?
Sure.
Who
We
has
know the stack of chairs
main
against the
sign
wall.
in sheet?
yeah, they stack up.
4 times.
Dan, I just got a text message with a picture of the sign-in sheet.
Yes,
I just got
It's a
all the
classroom setup.
Myself.
Got
So
here.
I can
Put it up here.
But, they said that they weren't too concerned, but, so we can just kind of set the tables in 2 rows.
2 chairs at each table and stack the rest of the chairs.
Maybe a medium or a large?
Okay. Okay, oh, great, so it's taken care of, so that's yours.
Oh, there's,
Okay.
Then with the table still set up.
Can I try those?
It was 2 rows of tables.
Did you, were you talking to me? I'm Miriam.
Miriam,
Okay,
so like,
What, do you have a question for me? Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know that we would, there's totally people that we know that would, I'm sure be so happy.
This is Bella for women, Canvas for men. Fairly small.
It's a brilliant idea. Anybody can help, and I know there's a lot of people that would be so happy to use Bella.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I tried to.
Maybe this happened. Well, it sounds like you have all these different things to accomplish, and it would be nice to do one that's more like you're describing, but for the working ones, Catherine might not be the best.
I'm so glad that you guys came.
Sam, it was really, really nice to meet you. I hope I see you again. Are you in the Portland area?
Yeah, Cedar Hills area.
Okay, great. Well, you have a little monthly meeting with our Portland?
So it's about like 2 rows of tables.
The next month.
She loves it. Is that smaller? That's smaller.
You're on here, no?
For me, it would be a little tight. It looks good on you, but I would want, now I know I want a large, I think.
Yeah, you're pretty tall.
That's good.
Yeah, you got a photo of that. I did the minutes, so those will be up, get that video.
So what is this?
We meet every week.